Kitchen Brain. Kitchen Brain. Kitchen Brain.
Okay, so here we are, Kitchen Brain Podcast. I have a very, very special guest today. We're going to be talking today with Sergeant First Class retired Rose Picard. Rose is somebody who's very special to me for a lot of reasons, and I think you'll see those reasons as this interview progresses. But we're gonna let her tell all the details of her story. But there are so many points of great inspiration in her story, starting out as a pastry chef in the civilian world, deciding late in life to join the Army, and some really incredible obstacles that she overcame, and everything that she did while she was in the Army. It's just an incredible honor to know her and to have her on the show. She also did a special training program called Training with Industry when she was in the Army, and myself and my team were fortunate to have her do that program at Farmington, where I work. So she was a part of our team for a year, which we'll get into, and that was really great. So, Rose, how are you?
Doing good.
Good.
Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thanks for taking some time. Like I said, I couldn't imagine trying to have a podcast that showed a lot of inspirational side to our industry without thinking about you. And I think I think it's interesting too, because you'll be able to kind of educate people listening on a little bit of what food service is like in the military, which I've been fortunate enough to learn a little bit more about working with the military Olympic team over the years, but just it's not something that everybody knows about, and I think we should know about it. We should know what our servicemen and women are doing for sustenance and how that all works. It's fascinating to me. I'm sure everybody else will agree. So let's just get started and jump in with kind of your journey. I mean, take us way back to a younger Rose when you were you were just starting out and you just getting into culinary school. Let's go back there and tell us where you went and how that progressed.
All right. So way back when I was 22 years old, and I started working at a place called the Carson City Nugget in Carson City, Nevada. And on my third graveyard shift, I was a waitress. On my third graveyard shift, there was a cook across the line, and he came over and he put these signs up in the window, and it said, Audrey, Irene, and the new babe. And I was like, and the new babe? And I looked across the line and I said, excuse me, I do have a name, And he walked around, he was like this, and he walked over and he ripped the name down, and then he wrote my name and put it back up. So that guy, that cook, he became my husband. He's my husband now for 30 years.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yes. So he's really the first person that inspired me to want to go into the kitchen, to not be in the front of the house, to be in the back of the house. And his dad, Ray Picard, Chef Ray, he was involved with the High Sierra Chefs Association, very well-known chef in the area. And so they both really inspired me. And so we put him through culinary school first. And then when he got out, we already had a child together. She was only 9 months old, Crystal, my daughter. And of course, I already had my two boys for my first marriage. And I decided, I really wanted to go to culinary school. So I saw an advertisement on TV for the California Culinary Academy in San Francisco. And at that time, if people don't know what the California Culinary Academy is, at that time, it was about third in the nation. It was a really highly rated school. And so we decided, hey, what the heck, let's try to do this. We moved to San Francisco and a whole bunch of stuff happened in between, but I was able to get through the culinary school and graduate with a certificate of baking and pastry arts.
Okay, cool. And then worked your way. Did you stay in that area, or where did that
No,
take
we
you?
went back to Nevada. So,
Okay.
yeah, we went back to Nevada. Actually, he went before me because I don't know if you've ever been to the Bay Area or lived there. It's, well, actually, your first podcast, he was telling you about, I think it was your first podcast, was telling how expensive it was to live in San
Oh,
Francisco.
San Francisco, yeah.
Uh-huh, yeah, it was crazy. I ended up living in a little just one little room on a floor where we had to share a bathroom with like 9 other people.
Wow.
Yeah. So, but hey, I got through the school. So,
Nice.
my husband took the kids to Nevada and I followed.
Nice. So you stayed in Nevada for a while, worked your way through the ranks, and
Yes.
what was your kind of ultimate pinnacle position as a civilian in the pastry world?
So yeah, I worked my way up. I learned a lot of things in the big commercial kitchen that wasn't anything like culinary school. And I had a great pastry chef. Her name is Brenda. And she taught me a lot of things, not just about, baking, but about just really basically like attitude and being positive in the kitchen. And so once she left, I was told, because like she could make these wedding cakes that were spectacular. And she made these beautiful like buttercream roses. And for some reason, the only thing I couldn't do was buttercream rose. So the chef told me, if you practice and you can show me that you can make these buttercream roses, I'm going to step you up to pastry chef. Can you imagine that? Right? Because so you can probably imagine what what their choices were in the area. So they were like, yeah, we got to just step her up. So I practiced at home with some decorator buttercream every day in front of the TV, just piping out roses. And I got them roses down in about a week and I got promoted.
Nice. Very cool. And were you running the show at that point? That was a promotion
I was.
to the top? Oh, cool.
I was running the show at the time.
Cool. How long did you do that there?
Let's see. I stayed there about 3 years. And then, when we were young, we were wild. We did some pretty crazy stuff. So we ended up making a trek to Boise, Idaho for a little bit. And I worked for Boise State University. And then we always, for some reason, ended up coming back to Nevada. And when I got back, Chef Leo, kept seeing him every Thursday. I'd go check in that I wanted this job because they were building the kitchens at this brand new casino from the ground up. And so I kept going in there and bugging him that I really wanted this job. And finally, once it got close, he hired me. And I actually got to start the bakery from the ground up, did all the costing, all the getting the inventory in, had 13 bakers under me. So that's where it really took off with getting some good experience in.
Cool. Okay. So you do that and you were the executive pastry chef of a couple of different places in Nevada, correct?
That was, the first one was Carson Valley Inn and Casino Fandango.
Okay. And how long were you at Fandango for?
I was there for 5 years, and I was there when I decided to join the Army.
Gotcha. So you're there, you have this great career, worked really hard to get there, master of buttercream roses. And then you join the Army. So how old were you when you decided I'm going to join the Army?
So I was 39. And I turned 40 in basic training.
Okay, so that begs the question, and you know what this question is.
What was I thinking?
Why did you get to 39 and get to this executive pastry chef position? Why did it ever occur to you that now I'm going to join the Army?
Yeah, so if anybody out there listening has ever worked in a casino kitchen, they know it's pretty wild. It's a pretty crazy lifestyle. You meet some real characters in there. I was just really tired of it. It was 24/7, get off work, the manager's hanging out, drink tokes, everybody goes to the bar. It was a pretty wild life to live. And so my son had been into some trouble. and he was locked up, unfortunately, for 6 months. But right when he was about to get released, all his friends started calling. I said, oh no, this is not happening. So I picked up my son and I said, look, I'm giving you 10 minutes to change. You're going to change your clothes and we're going to go down the recruit office. And he was like, okay, Mom. And he was 17. He wasn't 18 yet. So I took him down there. And when we walked in the door, the recruiter had been my dishwasher at Carson Valley Inn from like 7 years prior. And he's like, hey, chef, how you doing? You know, we have all these great opportunities in the Army for cooks. And he did the ultimate, like, reeled me in, like the best recruiter move ever. So sorry, my little headphones come off. So he just got on the computer and started showing me all these things, but like the really cool things that you can do in the Army, like all the competitions, the Pentagon, training with industry. He was showing me all these really cool things that you can do in the Army. And so I was like, wow, you know, I don't really have much like going on. Everything's the same day to day. And I always wanted to serve my country because my dad, he was a Marine. And I thought, I always wanted to serve my country. And if I don't do it now, I'm not going to have a chance, because they were taken up to 43 at the time because it was Iraq wartime. And my son joined and I joined as well, but he joined before me because I had to lose quite a bit of weight. So I was about 171 pounds, and I'm only barely 5'3", barely. And so I had to lose a good 30 pounds before they would take me.
Right. So you go to pick up your son. He got into some trouble, got locked up for a little bit. You go to pick him up, and your plan is that you're taking him to the recruiting office, the Army recruiting office, whether he liked it or not.
Mm-hmm.
And they basically recruited you.
Yes.
While you were doing that.
Yes.
And then next thing you know, you're getting ready to join the Army.
Yeah. Yep. I ended up going in. This was around, I would say, May. And I was at basic training in October.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, okay. So now let's just take a half a step back there. Your husband, Chris, what's he thinking through this whole thing?
You know, he's always supported everything that I've wanted to do, even if it's crazy. And I've always supported him in what he wanted to do.
Yeah.
And you know, we were hanging in there, but we weren't making that good of money. You know what I mean? And the healthcare is terrible out there in the restaurants. I was paying $500 a month for the family's insurance back then. And that's, you know, first you have to meet like a $2,000 deductible and things like that. But the real kicker that got me was they're like, hey, we have a sign-on bonus for cooks, $25,000. So I'm like, sheesh, you know, that was kind of the kicker that got me to say, you know what, I'm just going to go ahead and do this.
Yeah. So, okay, all right. I get the supportive thing because I know you and I know Chris, and I can see that, you know, he's been, you know, you've both been nothing but supportive of each other. And I can see that because I know you. Anybody who knows you guys knows that. But still, you know, this isn't like, hey, I think I'm going to go to school for psychology now. Right. You know, this is joining the Army. This is like possible deployment. This is, you know, moving around all the time. Like what I almost wish I was a fly on the wall when you came home and first mentioned to him that this is what you think you want to do. I mean, what was his actual response?
He loved it.
Really?
Yes, he loved it. He was like, he thought it was the greatest idea.
Wow.
Yeah, we discussed all the positives of it. You know, we discussed a little bit about deployment, but I never really took in this sounds funny, but I never really took in the whole deployment, war, everything. I didn't really take that in. I just took it as, hey, this is going to be something that's going to be good for me. I'll do my 4 years. I'll take my bonus. I'll get out.
Wow. Yeah,
Right.
that's a pretty big that's a that's a pretty incredible level of support. Yeah, I think about like my kids. My kids are only 5 and 7. And I feel like when our oldest Luca was, I don't know, he might have been 5 at the time. We're sitting around and kids are always, saying what they want to do when they get older. And he said, I want to be a soldier. And even I, knowing that he's only 5, even I was like, all right, buddy, you might want to take a few years to think about that. Let's just wait a little while.
Right.
So it's really cool that you had that support and still have that support.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So you go to basic training. Where did you do basic training?
At Fort Jackson, South Carolina.
Was it as hard as you imagined? Harder than you imagined?
It was about as hard as I imagined. I really thought it was going to be harder.
Really?
But the drill sergeants, I think because of my age,
Yeah.
they kind of took it easy on me a little bit. So if they had one of their little smoke sessions going on and I had to take a break and maybe put a knee down, they never said anything. They just kind of let me slide. But if it was the younger ones, they weren't sliding on anything.
Yeah. Did you ever look at your drill sergeant and say, hey, this is a lot easier than I thought it was going to be?
Oh, no. It's funny because I think it was probably after the first week of being in, we all got in line to get our M16s. And we're standing in line and I'm like, what is going on right now? And so I step up and they hand me my M16 and I'm like, what do you want me to do with that? I'm a cook. And they're like, just take it and move on. Because I really didn't think, like I was saying before, I didn't really think things through.
Right.
Can
you see that?
Yes.
There it is. That's one of my favorite pictures of Rose from a time when I didn't know her yet, but I see that
funny.
picture and I'm like, man, she is a badass.
Yeah, I got pretty good at it actually. So
I wouldn't mess with you.
From that moment of what do you want me to do with that? I'm a cook to that. Yeah, I got really good at it.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you didn't start out as a cook like right away. I mean, that was kind of the goal, but right away, how did it go? You get out of basic and then where do you go?
So I was part of a program called the ACAS program, which is the Army Civilian Acquired Skills Program. Okay. So normally you would get out of basic training and you would go to AIT, which is your advanced individual training. And there they train you how to cook, how to follow recipes, how to do field equipment and things like that, how to operate field equipment and things like that. But because of my past experience and already having my ServSafe certification, they were able to push me straight from basic training straight to my kitchen. So I went straight to my unit.
Okay, gotcha. So you were actually cooking for soldiers in Iraq?
No. So I first got to my unit and then I was called into the office for my little counseling briefing that they had. And I was told, hey, we're leaving for Iraq in 3 months. And so my heart kind of dropped and I said, this is getting real. And so I actually cooked there for a good 3 months before I got to Iraq.
Gotcha. And you were cooking in a dining facility?
I was cooking in a dining facility. They had me on short order. I told the sergeant in charge, I said, hey, I can bake anything. I could teach these soldiers how to, properly finish a pie or a cake and how to cut them. And she said, get out of my face, Picard, and get over there and make those French fries. I think I went home and cried that day.
So what are like I know there's a lot, and I've been to some dining facilities. What do you think the major differences are between cooking in the military, in a dining facility, as opposed to in the civilian world. Like, yeah, there's challenges for both. But I don't think, like I said in the beginning, I don't think anybody really knows, any civilians really know what goes on with food service in the Army or the military in
Yeah.
general.
Yeah. So, of course, you still have to do PT. So, that's your physical training. Everybody, it doesn't matter what your MOS is, you got to do your physical training. So that's got to fit in with whatever schedule that you're scheduled to cook. Also, then you have other training that you have to do as a soldier, as well as being a cook. And then once you're in the kitchen, they have recipe cards. They call them recipe cards, and you have to follow them to a T. They have a system called AFMIS, and this is basically their system of ordering food, keeping track of inventory, and printing off recipes. So you're not allowed to detour from the recipe, where in a regular kitchen, you'd be like, hey, that needs some more salt, or I think I need to add a little shot of vinegar or something to it, where you're issued exactly what is on that recipe card and you have to make it.
And that's
so that was the hardest thing for me.
Gotcha. So there's not like any soldiers taking creative liberties in a dining facility.
Not at all. Not at all.
Yeah. My dad cooked in the Army, and I remember he described what it was like back then. And when he first told me the story, he was telling me, why the food at that time was so terrible in the Army. And he said, it was funny because the government bought the best ingredients. We got good quality stuff. He said, but these recipe cards, he said back then, he said, the least educated people would get put into the dining facilities to cook. And he was one of, he didn't go to college or anything. And so they made these recipe cards, and I don't know if they're still similar, but he said they were like, one recipe card was like 30, 40 steps. And step one was like, open the box.
Yeah.
And step two was pour it in the pot. It was very, but he said what would happen was you started with these great ingredients and good recipes, but the guys would get lazy and they would get through steps 1 through 4. And then they just didn't want to do 5 through 8. So they skipped to 9. And by the end of it, it was barely what it was supposed to be. I know it's, not quite like that now. I just thought that was funny, but he did describe those cards. So now there is another thing, and I don't know, were you ever an enlisted aide?
No, I didn't. That's about the only thing I didn't do. I have worked alongside of some of the enlisted aides, but I never did the enlisted aide program.
Gotcha. Because I know that some of our mutual friends, and obviously you know more than that, but were enlisted aides, and that's kind of a different dynamic for the military too, because there, if I understand right, I mean, when you're working for a general, or reporting to somebody and you're exclusive to them, you can have a little bit of creativity and do some higher end stuff, right?
Definitely. Oh yeah, definitely. I did have the opportunity to work at the Pentagon. I worked at the Army Executive Dining Facility. And so we worked for the Chief of Staff, Secretary of the Army, Sergeant Major of the Army, all the top leaders. And it was basically like a restaurant where the people would come in, all 1-star general and civilian equivalent to a 1-star general were members of the dining facility. They could bring guests and they sat down. We took their order. It was typed into the computer and came out just like tickets in a kitchen. And we had a lot of creativity there with the different recipes, specials. Everybody was encouraged to submit recipes, things that we wanted to try.
Yeah. I think it's important to note, and I plan on having quite a few of the friends that I've made in the military on here because, there is this perception that food in the military is not good quality, and there is no good food. When I tell people that I'm an advisor for the military's Olympic team, culinary Olympic team, I get mixed responses, and people think like, wow, I didn't know that they were doing anything great with food in the military. And it's like there's a whole other level that people don't know about. But even some of the dining facilities, I mean, I'm sure some of them
Mhm.
need some work, but I've been to some dining facilities that are cooking great food.
They are.
And then when you go to some of these big events that the military chefs put on, I mean, it's amazing stuff that they're doing, and they're still doing. I mean, you see chocolate sculptures and tallow work, and some of the old school disciplines still being used, and it's pretty cool to see. And I really wish that more people knew about the level of skill that there is within culinary and pastry in the military. And I feel like you are, and I know you're going to deny it, but I feel like you are regarded as probably the most skilled and talented pastry chef in the military.
No.
Don't say no.
No.
Don't say no. I know that a lot of people hold you in that regard, and it's okay if you don't want to admit it, but I know that that's the case. And I mean, the work that you did just with pastry, not to mention savory, which we'll get to, but the cakes that you've done, and all the people that you've taught within the military, and the people that look up to you from the pastry chef perspective, or just the chef perspective, is pretty awesome. So we get to a part now where you make this decision. I don't want to say crazy decision. It was the right decision.
It was pretty crazy.
Shocking, I think maybe is a better
Yeah.
word. And you do this, you go through basic training, you go through deployment. But at some point in your military career, you were presented with a pretty major obstacle in your life.
Yeah.
And I would love for you to share that and tell us, because this is a big part of the inspiration of, I think, of your story.
Yeah, so I was at the Pentagon. I was working at the Pentagon, and one day, it sounds kind of weird. I'll just be honest. We're having a podcast. Let's talk honestly.
Yeah, let's do it.
I was having a weird dream. I kept having a weird dream about, I mean, we've all had dreams about being naked, right? So I kept having dreams about walking around, nude.
Uh-huh.
And so I was telling my husband, and this was for 3 days, I was having this dream, and I'm like, I keep having this weird dream. And it kind of just planted some kind of seed in my head. And I hadn't done a breast self-exam in a long time because I was so busy at work. We were, I was going to boards and learning everything there was in the Pentagon. And I was just at my highlight. Like I was just rocking it, And I thought, I better do a self-breast exam. And during that self-breast exam, I found a lump. And so I was like, yeah, it's probably nothing, I don't have time for this and stuff. So about 3 weeks goes by, and I mentioned to one of my NCOs who was in charge of me. I was at E5 at the time. And I mentioned to my E6, I'm like, yeah, I'll just let you know I'm going to have to make an appointment soon. I found a lump in my breast, and I'm sure it's nothing, but I got to make an appointment. And so he's like, okay. And so then another day goes by, and he asks me another day. I put it off. And he says, look, put that stuff down right now. You're going to go in the office. You're going to make the appointment. So I went in there, made an appointment. And sure enough, I had to go through a big process of seeing my primary care provider. And then they sent me to Fort Belvoir. I had a mammogram, and yeah, indeed, it was breast cancer.
Wow.
Yeah.
So how does that? What happens in a military setting? How did things go from there?
Yeah. So a lot of people, there was a lot of chatter about, hey, she's going to have to get out. And I decided, hey, I didn't come to the Pentagon or come this far to just give up and get out. I was really determined to stay in. And so my chain of command, they were super awesome. So I had to go for surgery. First, I had a lumpectomy, and the entire team, I walked in for surgery at 6 a.m. and I turned and I looked, and my whole team was there. And I was like, oh my God, what are you guys doing here? And they said, we're here for support. So I had a few complications through the surgery, so it took a long time. I got out at probably 6 o'clock. I was supposed to be out by like 2 p.m. and I didn't get out till like 6 p.m. And when I walked out with my husband, actually he wheeled me out, there was my NCO still standing there waiting for me to come out. And so that was just amazing to me. And so then a few weeks goes by and the pathology report came back and they didn't get all the cancer. So we decided to go ahead and do a mastectomy. He wanted to do another lumpectomy, and I said that I didn't feel comfortable with it. I just wanted to go ahead with the mastectomy. And it's a good thing I did, because once I had the mastectomy, they did the pathology report on that, and the cancer was scattered throughout my whole entire breast. So, and they also removed an 11 millimeter tumor from my lymph node.
Wow.
Yeah. And so that kind of changed the course of things. At first, they thought they were just going to do the lumpectomy. I take it's a hormone blocker. They call it kind of like a chemo pill that you take daily. They thought it was going to be just that. It turned out to be chemo. I had chemotherapy for 12 weeks, radiation, 30 rounds, and then on this chemo medication. I've been on it now for 5 years.
Wow. And how long was that process from surgery through all those treatments? How long of a time frame is that?
It was 11 months. 11 months.
11 months. And obviously during those 11 months, you're not actively participating in any military activities?
Well, as far as PT goes, not really. I was kind of persistent because I was bummed out. I'm not even kidding. I was bummed out because I got this dream job and I was like, I'm not going to sit on the sidelines. So they still let me come in. I would come in. At first, they're like, okay, you can come in, but you need to sit in the office. So they'd let me answer phones in the office, just to give me something to do. Bald as could be. I lost all my hair. And then they put me in charge of the catering, which was pretty awesome. I got to learn a lot there. I was in charge of catering for about, probably 6 or 8 weeks. So that was a good experience to learn that too. But the one thing that Sergeant Alston and Mr. Humbard, they were the people in charge at the RDF. They taught me something that will stick with me for the rest of my life. They told me, look, when you get better and you get back, it's going to be here. It'll always be here. They're like, get well, get better, get 100%, and then you can continue on. And so that's really stuck with me. Even now, I get tired. I'm like, I need to do something else. And so, you know what? I'm just going to listen to my body, take a break,
It'll be there when you get back.
It'll be there when I get back.
So, I mean, the courage there and the tenacity to just keep going is incredible. But when you were, during that 11-month period, was there ever a time, particularly maybe right after surgery or, in the beginning of your treatments, was there a time when you were thinking about throwing in the towel and just saying, I can't do this? I mean, did that ever go through your head?
It did. I have a real defining moment of that. So I was into my second round of chemo and I was in bed, and the feeling, there's no way to describe the feeling. It was like my brain was on fire. It was, it takes everything out of you, wipes all your blood cells out, everything you got. And I'm laying in bed and I'm just looking out the window and the sun's coming in and it was beautiful. And I thought, I can't do this. I cannot do this. And then this voice said, and I swear to you, I heard a voice say, no, you will get up. And I sat up and I put my feet on the bed, and on the floor, and I remember putting my toes in the carpet. And this voice said, you will get up and you will get dressed and you will get on with this life that you're meant to live. And it was just this huge defining moment. And it was like that moment, that's the only moment in my whole life I ever felt like giving up. And that moment just pushed me. I got up, I got dressed. My daughter and I went for a walk, and I just kept pushing forward.
Who do you think that voice was?
You know, I think it was my dad. You know, my dad is the toughest guy I've ever known. And he was a cook. He was a cook in the Marines and a badass machine gunner on a half track. And he went through the Korean War. He's a survivor of the Battle of Choisin Reservoir. And so I don't know if you know anything about the Battle of Choisin Reservoir, but it's one of the worst strategic mistakes the military's ever made. It's very interesting to get a chance to read about it.
Yeah,
and they call it the frozen Choisin. And he was out there in the middle of it in the winter. And he actually got blown up. And my dad went through some crazy obstacles. And I have a little cross that his mother gave him, and he carried it all through the Korean War. And I kept that cross on the whole entire time I was going through chemo, everything, all those treatments. And I really feel like it was my dad speaking to me.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, it was.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, wow. Take a pause from that story. So you did in fact, obviously you did in fact recover, and you've been cancer free.
Yes.
Since, which is awesome.
Yep.
And so you know, once you get back to 100%. I assume they were right, and all that stuff was there waiting for you.
It was.
and then what's next? I mean, I know that you started competing quite a bit in the military with food.
Yes. So I got to go through. I was part of the Pentagon's team, and I got to compete with Sergeant First Class Ward and Sergeant First Class Alston, who are the best, if you ask me.
They are.
And yeah, you know them. Mm-hmm. And we went through Team Pentagon at one of the culinary competitions there in Fort Lee. And sorry, I lost my train of thought.
That's all right. We went through the Pentagon, through the culinary training.
Oh, and so then I really wanted to, I heard about this program called Training with Industry. And so I really wanted to do that. But in order to apply for that, I had to pass PT test. So Sergeant Alston worked really hard with me at getting, with my running, and she ran with me, and she timed my laps, and she did everything and worked extra hard on planks and all this stuff to get me up to par. And it was the lowest PT score I ever got, but I passed it, and I was able to submit my packet for Training with Industry.
That's awesome. Yeah, and they don't change the guidelines for you just because of what you went through, right? I mean, you still have to.
Oh no.
You still have to meet the same requirement as everybody else.
Yeah, and I kind of waited till the last minute because I was bald, and so I waited till the regulations for females is you got to have at least 1 inch of hair. So I waited till the very last minute to get my picture taken. And I took my picture with my little 1 inch of hair. So
wow. Well, I never would have even thought of that. Wow. They're all about the specs in the military, huh?
And the standards, meeting the standards.
Standards, yeah. So Training with Industry, that's where I started to benefit from Rose. and why don't you explain what the Training with Industry program is and how you brought it to my doorstep?
Okay, so the Training with Industry program is a program. It's for numerous MOSs across the Army. For 92 Gulfs at the time that I was accepted to the program, there were 3 slots. There are currently only 1 slot left, unfortunately. 1 slot was at the CIA in San Antonio. The other one was at Stafford in Kentucky, I believe. And then the third one was going to be with the American Culinary Federation, but at the last minute, something happened where they had to drop the contract. And luckily, you picked it up.
Yeah, lucky for me. Nothing unfortunate in that story for me. So Rose came to Farmington and joined our team for 1 year. And you can see the photo that she has over her shoulder there is a photo of her with our team. And I can actually put that same photo up on the screen here. So that's Rose. This was like your last week, I think, at Farmington.
It was.
So that was kind of that was our leadership team in the kitchen at the time. And you wouldn't get through this interview without me putting up my favorite picture. I think this is like one of the best all-time pictures of anything ever. I love this picture so much. This is going to be well, by now everybody's listening, so they'll already know, but just so you know, this will be the thumbnail and the advertisement for this episode of Kitchen Brain. But I don't think we really planned on it at the time when we took this picture, but I do think that I think that this photo says some things. I mean, I think it speaks to the potential and duality of people. I mean, you are so skilled, and again, I wish more people thought this way or realized this about our service members in all branches, not just the military, not just the Army. I've been very fortunate to get to work with and meet people from all branches of the military, and most of them, the majority of them, are cooks or chefs in some way, shape, or form, just because of my capacity. But getting to know everybody, you learn so much more, and you learn that there is so much more to our service members than just being soldiers, or whatever branch they're in. They're incredible. There's just incredible people who really care. When Rose talks about her team that was there at the hospital, and they came in to see her, and they said that this is support. That's what it is. That's what the military is. It's what people put into it and what they get out of it. And it's the reason why, I think we as a country are so fortunate to have that standard of character fighting for us and doing what they do. So that's pretty cool. So yeah, that's my favorite photo.
I love that one too.
That's a good one. And so you did the training with industry with us, and it was really cool, to have Rose at Farmington, because you could tell by now at this point of the interview how inspiring of a person she is. And she's like that all the time. There's nothing different about Rose when she's at work. When there are people around her, there are people being inspired by her. And it doesn't matter what level the people are at. I mean, you can even just being a follower or a friend on social media, she's always putting up these inspirational things, and encouraging everybody to just go after it, whatever that is. And she did that for us at Farmington. And it was, probably one of the most impactful intern, I would say, presences that I've ever had in any kitchen that I've ever run. Of course, all the interns that we have contribute positively, and we value all of them, and they all have their stamp that they put on us before they leave. But there's just something magical about what Rose brings to her room. And I'm not trying to make you uncomfortable here, but it's true. It's true, and everybody says it. Everybody that you would talk to would say the same thing. But it was also there were definitely some humorous times, because, and I like to tell this story. And when Rose and I spoke the other day, I brought this up. But obviously, Rose was deployed to Iraq, And she shared some stories with us about, what it was like being there, and told stories about, when there would be mortar shells, or incoming, or, if that's, I'm pretty sure they call it incoming.
Yeah, it's
But they were, they
incoming.
took fire at least close by, close enough to make me uncomfortable. And she would tell us those stories. And there was one night when we had put Rose. So Rose, your strength, I should say that your strength was pastry. So I tried as much as possible to keep you away from the pastry shop, to keep you out of your comfort zone, and throw you more into the savory side of things, to help you become more well-rounded, so that when you left and became an instructor at Fort Lee, that you would have a little more foundation there. But there was a night, Rose was on the line at what was our fine dining restaurant, and she was working the grill station, and it was a busy night. And I don't think you had put many nights in before that on that line.
No.
So you're fairly new, and the tickets, I mean, they're just pumping out of the machine. And I walked in the kitchen, and I could just see that look, that line cook, deer in headlights, just overwhelmed with fear of the tickets. And I leaned in the window and I said, "How you doing, chef?" And she said, "I don't know, chef. That machine just won't stop. It just keeps coming." And she was kind of freaking out. And I said, "Rose, weren't you in Iraq? I mean, didn't you tell me stories about taking fire in Iraq?" And she said, "Yeah, chef, but you could run from that shit. I can't get away from this thing."
And it was so true.
Oh man, it was great. It was great. Yeah, so many good times we had there. It was awesome. So that you moved on. Well, no, let's not talk about that yet. Let's talk about another huge milestone in Rose's career and life. There's two actually. We Farmington was a part of two huge milestones in your life. So first, Rose, being as tenacious as she is, and wanting to go after anything that's in front of her, she really wanted to compete at the savory portion of competition. Most of your competing up until that point was with pastry and cakes and centerpieces and desserts and things. So you wanted to throw your hat in the ring and compete at Fort Lee for the joint culinary exercise that they have every year, which, by the way, every year at Fort Lee in Virginia, what takes place there is the largest American Culinary Federation competition in the world. And they give out, upwards of 200 medals in the course of a little under 2 weeks. It's all servicemen and women that compete. So it's not a civilian thing. There's actually international installations that come in for that and compete as well. It's a massive, massive competition, and more people should know about that also. But so Rose goes to that, decides I want to train for savory, and I want to do a hot food competition. So you signed up for what we called a K comp, which was how many portions was it? Was it 2 or 4 portions?
It was 4.
4 portions, 1 hour.
1 hour.
1 dish, and she chose lamb, and we started training at Farmington to get her ready for this competition. And you could see it too. You see that work ethic and that drive. She was unstoppable when it came to training. You could tell that that's just something that was a part of her and a part of her ethic. And she worked really hard. I was a judge. I wasn't a judge for her competition because it obviously would have been a conflict of interest, but I was a floor judge at the show for other categories. So I was able to watch, and everybody was laughing at me because she was cooking and I was pacing back and forth, and it looked like I was an expecting father. Because it's stressful to be somebody's coach, especially when you care so much about the person and the outcome. You get really invested and stressed out about it. But But she did great, and you tell him.
Yeah, so it's amazing the training that I got at Farmington, because not I got really individualized training from Chef Mike, but the other sous chefs, I swear they probably knew all of my menus better than me, because they had to try it so much. And so it was just amazing, because the training you gave me, Chef, I remember you standing there and watching me, and you would tell me, you were writing down notes during the whole thing. And at the end, you'd say, hey, you took too many steps to do this. You grabbed the spoon, you set it down, you did this, you did that. And then as I was going on the second round, Chef was telling me, I got a little bit lost, and he was just like, it was so great, because, I'm good at taking orders. So he's like, pick up that spoon, turn around, put it in the pot, grab that pot, put it on the thing. And I was just boom, 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 everything he told me to do, right? And so then I was just able to execute after that. I remember Chef Charlie, awesome.
Yeah.
Him giving me a little speech before I went off to do the competition. He was like, yeah, Chef, I just want you to know, no matter what the outcome is, you've worked really hard. Everything's a learning experience. And I looked at him and I said, Chef, I don't even know what you're talking about right now, because I'm going to win this thing. He was giving me the little speech, about, hey, just remember, it's a learning experience. No, I'm going to win this. So I'm a big competitor. So so I ended up rocking it out, got it right up to the last minute, and I got a gold. So I got a gold in that category.
Yes, you did.
It was amazing.
Yeah. It was
my dirty apron. That apron makes me cringe.
Another one of my favorite pictures there.
Me too.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you had one other thing, at least at Farmington. You wanted to go out for the Certified Executive Pastry Chef certification.
Mm-hmm.
And that is something that is, anybody who knows me knows that I am far from a pastry chef. I don't pretend to be a pastry chef. It's not my deal, but we kind of pulled our resources together a little bit, and you already had, you didn't need to learn anything about pastries to pass that certification. You already had what you needed to do that from a knowledge perspective. But you trained for that at Farmington too, right?
Mm-hmm, I did. I started off, actually, when I did the certification, it was the third time I did it. So the first time I was asked, hey, do you want to do a certification? I said, hey, what the heck? I hadn't even practiced a menu or done anything. So that was a good learning experience. The second time I did it, I practiced a few times and I still didn't pass. So that was about enough to make me a little bit angry. So I took that anger and I just kind of pushed it towards, how can I be better and just really rock this thing out? So I actually got a styrofoam dummy and practiced my piping on there over and over again. Started off small, what you taught me to do one thing at a time, and then bring it all together. So so I ended up passing. It was hard, but anything worth it's hard.
That's right. Yeah. Well, hard is relative too. I mean, you there wasn't a whole lot of difficulty, but I think leading up to that for you and obstacles that you didn't already overcome, that didn't prepare you for that. That's so, you become an executive pastry chef in the civilian world. I have to recap here because there's so much. Executive pastry chef in the civilian world. You decide to join the Army at age 39. You went through a deployment in Iraq. You have a breast cancer diagnosis. You beat that. You stay in the Army. You keep going. You do this training with industry program that you had to pass a PT test for. You didn't have to do that. You didn't have to choose to meet those requirements, but you chose anyway. You did it. You do the training with industry program. You decide to prove that you're worthy to be in a savory kitchen. You get a gold medal in a savory competition at the professional level. You go for your Executive Pastry Chef certification, and you achieve that. Then let's talk about the pastry side real quick, because I don't want to make it sound like you've only gotten one medal in a competition kitchen. I mean, you have several medals from the pastry side of things too. Do you have any idea what the count is on pastry medals?
17, 16.
Yeah, pretty amazing. That's cool stuff. So any regrets?
I don't have any regrets.
No?
I really don't. Yeah, I don't have any regrets. Maybe I have a little regret. Okay, we'll talk about when I was younger. So, I'm not going to say that I regret it, because it got me to where I am here. But I did miss out a lot on my kids growing up, because I worked, both my husband and I. My husband was a chef as well. And we both worked in the restaurant industry. So I was gone every Christmas, Thanksgiving, Easter, Mother's Day, you name it, the whole entire time of them growing up. And then I didn't want my chefs to go through, my chefs to go through that. And so a lot of times I'd say, hey, let's go in early. We'll get set up for Christmas and I'll stay through the buffet. And so I'd let them go. But yeah, that's a little time you can't get back.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
And you just retired recently. So how long were you in the Army from, total?
Yeah. So 13 years, I medically retired. I ended up breaking my ankle a couple of years ago, falling down some stairs, and I couldn't run anymore. And then the side effects from the chemo pill, it causes a lot of joint pain, muscle pain, things like that. And I couldn't do the PT anymore. So I ended up medically retiring as a 100% disabled veteran on May 29th. And now I am working at this as an instructor at the senior leader course. And that's SLC. And basically that's where the 92 Golfs come, and they go to school and they're learning what they need to learn as a advanced leader. So they're learning the AFMIS program, which is the program I was talking about previously, where you keep track of your inventory, how much money you're spending, rations going in and out, and all that. We also teach Serve Safe, leadership, marketing, and stuff like that. So that's what I'm doing now.
Wow. So now you're paying it forward.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Any advice for anyone who, any advice for anyone who is looking or has thought about changing course in their life or in their career? Anything from all of your experiences, what advice would you give to anybody at any stage of life who's looking to make a change or on the fence about that?
I just really feel like if it's in your heart, just go for it. If, like I said, if it's really, something that you want to do, don't let anybody stop you. When I was going to join the Army, I love the chef I work for. Don't get me wrong. God bless his soul. Is Chef Axel. He was the executive chef at Fandango. And when he heard I was going to join the Army, and it was wartime, he was a little flipped out because he was a Vietnam War vet. And I walked in his office one day, and he had these pictures of dead soldiers on his wall hanging up. And I said, Chef, what is this? And he goes, I want you to know what you're getting yourself into. And I said, and he kind of like chewed me out. He was a German chef. And and I said, Chef, I'm doing this. This is really what I want to do. And then after I'd been in a couple of years and things went by, he wrote me an email. Actually, I think it was when I was in Iraq. He wrote me an email and said, hey, I'm really proud of you for what you had done. and that you went for it. So my advice to anybody out there is, hey, just do it. If it's in your heart, go for it. Don't listen to what anybody says to you.
So 13 years, right? 13, you said?
13.
How many years did your son stay in the Army?
Yeah. So he only stayed in for 6 months.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Yeah. So he got into a little trouble in AIT, and the drill sergeant asked him, are you serious if you want to get in, or if you want to stay in, or do you want to get out? And he said, I want to get out. So basically, it was mom forcing me to go in, and he wanted to get out. So he did. And he's actually doing really, really great right now. He was working for Tesla for a little while, and now he's learned the plumbing trade. So everything worked out really great for him, but the military just wasn't something that was for him.
Yeah, that's great. That's pretty wild, though. I mean, if you think back to the original plan, it's like
right.
You're going to pick him up, and you're like, I'm going to set this kid straight. We're putting him in the Army, and you wind up serving 13 years, and he does 6 months.
But if you think about it, like if that hadn't happened, I'm truly a believer in things happen for a reason. So if he hadn't got into trouble and we hadn't walked into that recruiter's office, I might not have been on the path that I've been on. So
I agree.
It's kind of weird to say, hey, thanks, Adam, for for that. But yeah.
Yeah. So speaking of thank yous, I have a question. And I would imagine you've been asked this before, and I probably have asked a couple of people before. What is and this is like off topic, but this is just a civilian asking a question to a service member.
Okay.
Thank you for your service. I have heard 2 different opinions on how service members feel when a civilian says that to them. What is your perspective on that? Like, what do you think, or what do you think the consensus is, if there is one, from service members when a civilian sees them and says, thank you for your service? Well,
it's a nice feeling, honestly, when somebody thanks you for their service. And I always come back with, when they say, thank you for your service, I always say, well, thank you for your support. Because, the American people support our service members. But like, in all honesty, you can't really, when it happens on the spot, you can't explain it. I just come back with, thank you for your support. But for me, the U.S. Army has done more for me than I feel like I could have ever gave back. And so when somebody says, thank you for your service, I'm kind of like, thank you, U.S. Army, right. Because, just with everything that I've gotten from the Army, I try to always put in, I was always trying to put in back in 100%.
Sure. All right. Cool. Well, Rose, Chef, Sergeant First Class, all your your titles.
Retired.
Retired. Thank you so much for doing this and for sharing your story. You'll always be close to my heart, and we'll always keep in touch. But I'm really glad that people are going to get to hear your story. People who don't know you need to know you, and I would feel really selfish to think that I had a chance to be inspired by you, and then not share that inspiration with the rest of the world. So that's what this was all about for me. And I truly appreciate your time, and thank you for your service.
Thank you for your support.
Yeah. So we'll keep in touch, and hopefully you guys can get back to Charlottesville to visit a little bit, see our new kitchen, and hang out, because I'd love to catch up. But in the meantime, stay safe. Good luck with your new gig. Give my best to Chris, and thanks a lot. Stay well.
Thanks for having me.